Prologue, The Threads of Time. History is not a single story but a vast tapestry. Each life, each age, is a thread, sometimes golden, sometimes soaked in blood, sometimes fading into silence, sometimes burning so brightly it blinds the eye. To walk through history is to wander through endless corridors, where the voices of peasants and queens, artists and rulers, whisper their truths. This is a journey through four such corridors, four worlds far apart yet connected by the eternal human struggle, to survive, to wield power, to be remembered, and to create meaning. Act 1, The Bitter Dawn of the Middle Ages. The rooster crowed not with triumph but with fatigue. Its voice rose from a muddy village in 14th century Europe, where dawn meant neither peace nor promise, only another day of endurance. Inside a one-room hut, a peasant family stirred. The air was heavy with the sour smell of sweat, dung, and smoke. A mother brushed lice from her child's hair while rats skittered near the fire pit. The man of the house, his hands rough as bark, dragged himself from the straw mattress alive with fleas. He had dreamt of bread but woke to hunger. Outside, frost bit the earth, the fields called, but so did the Lord's taxes. Survival was a bargain made daily, and the coin was blood, sweat, and silence. Hygiene was a word unknown here. Chamber pots overflowed, waste was tossed into the street, and shoes were a luxury. Men labored until their backs bent like sickles, women bore children until their bodies broke. Marriage came young, sometimes at 12 or 13. Childbirth was a gamble with death, and death often won. At market, the food was pottage, a gray, lumpy porridge of beans and roots, sometimes flavored with a sliver of pork if fortune smiled. Beer, weak and sour, quenched thirst, for water was a carrier of disease. Meat was a dream, famine was a reality. The church bells rang, not only to call to prayer but to remind all of their place. God, the priest said, had ordered the hierarchy, king above lord, lord above peasant, man above woman. To question was to sin. To disobey was to risk burning at the stake or swinging from the gallows. Women bore the brunt of suspicion, midwives accused of witchcraft, widows shunned, wives beaten with the blessing of Scripture. Yet, even here, in mud and misery, people found music. A boy whistled while chopping wood. Women laughed together as they washed linen in the icy stream. At night, around the fire, stories were told, of saints, of monsters, of knights and quests. Life was cruel, but the human heart clung to sparks of joy. Still, the Middle Ages were less a romance than a cage of hardship. The plague lurked, famine shadowed every harvest, and war could sweep through villages without warning. To live was not to thrive but simply to survive, and survival itself was the greatest act of defiance. Act 2, The Empress of Russia. Leap forward to the glittering, treacherous courts of 18th century St. Petersburg. Candlelight shimmered on gilded walls, and whispers cut deeper than swords. Into this world arrived Sophia von Holtz-Zerbst, a minor German princess with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. She was only 14, bound by duty to marry the awkward Grand Duke Peter of Russia. The marriage was a prison gilded with jewels. Peter was cruel, childish, and careless. Sophie, now renamed Catherine, suffered in silence, studying Russian, converting to Orthodoxy, and mastering the art of survival. She smiled where others sulked, listened where others spoke, and observed the shifting tides of power with patient calculation. When Peter ascended the throne as Peter III, his eccentricity turned to disaster. He worshipped Prussia, alienated the nobility, and neglected his own empire. Catherine saw her chance. With allies in the army and nobility, she orchestrated a coup. Peter fled but was soon captured and conveniently died under mysterious circumstances. At 33, Catherine was empress. Her reign was a paradox. She adored the philosophers of the Enlightenment, corresponding with Voltaire and Diderot, yet she ruled with an iron hand. She expanded schools, codified laws, and nurtured the arts. St. Petersburg became a beacon of culture, filled with theaters, palaces, and libraries. But when the serfs cried for freedom, she tightened their chains. The Pugachev Rebellion, a violent peasant uprising, threatened her throne. Catherine crushed it ruthlessly, proving that reform had limits when power was at stake. Her personal life scandalized Europe. Lovers came and went, some serving as confidants, others as political allies. But beneath the gossip was a mind unmatched in ambition. She expanded the Russian Empire southward against the Ottomans, westward through the partitions of Poland. She secured warm water ports, strengthened the navy, and made Russia a colossus. Catherine's story is one of transformation, from powerless girl to absolute monarch. She bent tradition to her will, embodying both the promise and the peril of female power in a patriarchal world. History remembers her as a woman who ruled not as a consort or regent, but as sovereign, brilliant, ruthless, and unforgettable. Act 3, The Red Queen of Palenque. The jungle of Chiapas whispered secrets older than empires. Beneath Temple 13 in the ruined city of Palenque, archaeologists in 1994 uncovered a sealed chamber. Inside lay a skeleton, bathed in cinnabar's deadly red dust, adorned with jade beads and a mosaic mask. They called her the Red Queen. Her true name remains lost, but her tomb spoke volumes. The cinnabar, sacred to the Maya, symbolized blood, rebirth, and divine transformation. Jade, green as the jungle, eternal as the gods, was the stone of kings. This woman, buried beside Palenque's greatest ruler, Pakal the Great, had been no mere consort. Some believe she was Pakal's wife, Lady Zakbu Ajah, who helped secure alliances. Others argue she was his mother, the dynastic anchor of Palenque's golden age. Whatever her role, the richness of her burial reveals that women in Maya society could wield immense power, political, spiritual, and ceremonial. Colonial myths painted indigenous women as silent shadows, but the Red Queen's tomb tells another story. She was buried as a sovereign priestess, her afterlife journey marked with sacred offerings. The cinnabar preserved her bones but poisoned the tomb, as if her power lingered too strong to be disturbed. Through her, we glimpse a civilization where the cosmos was alive in every ritual, where death was not an end but a passage. The Red Queen's silence speaks louder than chronicles. Women in the Maya world could be keepers of dynasties, mediators with gods, and rulers of men. Act 4, The Painter of Pain and Passion. Fast forward to 20th century Mexico. The streets of Coyoacán smelled of tortillas, smoke, and flowers. In a blue house, the Casa Azul, a girl named Frida Kahlo was born in 1907. She limped from childhood polio but refused pity. At 18, a bus accident shattered her spine, pelvis, and leg. Pain became her lifelong companion. Confined to her bed, she turned the mirror above her into a canvas. "I paint myself," she said, "because I am so often alone." Her self-portrait stared unflinchingly at suffering, at identity, at the broken body that became her battlefield and her muse. Frida loved fiercely and lived boldly. She married Diego Rivera, the towering muralist, in a stormy union of art and betrayal. She embraced her bisexuality, dressed in vibrant Tehuana dresses, and carried her indigenous roots as a badge of defiance. Communist politics, nationalist pride, and personal agony blended in her art. Paintings like the two Fridas and the broken column transformed pain into poetry. Her work refused to idealize, instead, it confronted reality with surreal intensity. She rejected labels, telling André Breton she did not paint dreams but her own reality. Even as illness consumed her body, Frida's spirit burned. She attended exhibitions in a hospital bed, her hair crowned with flowers, her eyes blazing. She died at 47, leaving behind not just canvases but a legend. Today, she is more than an artist, she is a feminist icon, a queer pioneer, a symbol of resilience and authenticity. Her image, braided hair, fierce brow, flowers in her crown, has become universal shorthand for defiance and beauty and pain. Epilogue. The human tapestry. From the peasants of medieval Europe to the palaces of St. Petersburg, from the sacred tombs of Palenque to the vibrant studios of Mexico, the stories converge. Survival, power, mystery, art, these are the eternal rhythms of humanity. The Middle Ages teach us endurance. Catherine the Great embodies ambition. The Red Queen whispers of forgotten power. Frida Kahlo sings of resilience. Together, they remind us that history is not just the story of kings and wars, but of every soul who dared to live, love, and leave a mark. And in their voices, whether shouted, whispered, or painted, we hear our own.